Rail transport is good for the environment. It's going to help meet net carbon targets. It's the way that we should be doing things. Forget everything that you've heard about railways. HS2 is not that. My name's Joe Rukin. I'm the campaign manager for Stop HS2. Well, 10 years ago, when I first heard those three words, high-speed rail, I thought that sounds like a really good idea, and I made the mistake of reading the plans. And the more and more you read about HS2, the more and more you realise that it was an absolute disaster, that the only reason this thing is happening is because it's been lobbied for by the vested interest in the construction industry, who have basically sold the government the most expensive railway in the history of the planet and tried to make out that it's essential for all these various reasons. And none of these arguments stack up. None of the arguments for HS2 stack up whatsoever. And this is the thing, you would think that normally a railway is a good thing. You know, that's what we all believe, and public transport, and especially rail transport, is good for the environment. It's going to help meet net carbon targets. It's the way that we should be doing things if we want to get people out of their cars, if we want a more sustainable future. The problem is HS2 is not, forget everything that you've heard about railways, HS2 is not that. It has been designed at 250 miles an hour, which would make it the fastest railway again in the history of the planet, for no other reason than to maximise the cost of building it. So the construction industry, again, the people who've lobbied for it, can make as much money as possible. And that design speed, that 250 mile an hour design speed, even though they're talking about potentially slowing it down now to save money, but that design speed dictates everything about the project. It minimises the flexibility, it minimises functionality. It means you can't connect properly with the existing rail network. It means you can't carry freight. It maximises the land take. It means that you've got the biggest devastation you can possibly have to the natural world, because at that speed it can't bend around things, and it's got a bigger, wider land take. Like people have, everyone stood on a railway platform. You know how wide a railway is. No, that's not how wide HS2 is. A great example would be in 2019, where HS2 decided to change some of the proposed routes around in Nottinghamshire. And what you've got is a map of HS2 next to the M1 at Trowel Services. And you look at how wide the M1 is, and then you look how wide HS2 is, and it's about 3 times as wide as it. When you look at the cuttings, when you look at the embankments, all of which are being over-designed because it all maximises the cost. And that's what the contractors who are building it want. They want it to cost as much as possible, which is why HS2, it started off that it was going to cost £32.7 billion in 2010. It's now officially at 88 billion. The Prime Minister has said it'll be over 100. The most recent estimate, which has actually used the costing model that Network Rail use, which HS2 have decided, oh no, we're not going to use that, that comes out as £116 billion. So over treble what it was to start off with, and it's been downgraded as well, because originally it was going to go to Heathrow Airport. Originally it was going to go to the Channel Tunnel, and both of those things have been cut, and it's still over 3 times what it was originally meant to be. And that was, again, one of the things that was said at the start, that it will take flights out of the air. But because it would connect Heathrow and the Channel Tunnel and a load of major cities, and it would reduce requirements for aviation. Well, actually, no. What it does now is it connects airports. It goes to Birmingham Airport, it goes to Manchester Airport, it goes near East Midlands Airport. And all of those 3, along with Leeds Bradford Airport, are lobbying for HS2 to be built because they all say it is essential. It is essential in their plans to expand international aviation. And this is one of the problems with HS2. There's so many things that are counterfactual. You would expect a railway to be good for the environment. Right, I've already said that it's bad for the natural environment. In fact, we've just had a report from the Wildlife Trust who said 693, so nearly 700 wildlife sites are threatened by HS2 because it's so straight, because it can't bend round habitats and protected areas, and because it's so wide. And they said 33 SSSIs are threatened. Compare that to HS2's figure, they say 15. And HS2 responded to the Wildlife Trust and said, oh, it is wrong and misleading. No, it is inaccurate and misleading. Their report that detailed all those all those impacts, because what do the wildlife trusts know about wildlife and habitats? And that's the attitude of HS2. It's sort of this almost arrogance, this arrogant sociopath attitude whereby any criticism whatsoever, no, it's not true, that's not happening. Similar thing happened like last year, well, 2018. We said, this is clearly 3 years behind schedule, and it was published in the papers, and HS2 said, that's where I got wrong and misleading from. It's wrong and misleading to say that we're 3 years behind schedule. And we said, well, that's what it says on your website. And this is the problem. Any criticism of the project, they're just not interested. And what they're saying now is they're saying it is essential for net zero carbon targets in the future. And hang on, but your own assessment shows it as a carbon contributor 120 years into the future. And the reason for that is because you've got to build it. Building what is effectively a 350-mile runway down the country has a significant carbon impact in terms of the concrete that you're planting down. And they just want to ignore that completely. And they fiddle the figures in terms of carbon output for running the thing, because they just come up with this ridiculously optimistic, grossly inflated passenger forecast that just says, oh well, we'll have more people on this train than the East Coast Main Line, the West Coast Main Line and the Midland Main Line intercity services combined, despite the fact we don't stop at anything like the number of stations like Coventry or Derby or Macclesfield, Stockport, or you name it, Wakefield, Doncaster. Won't stop at any of those places, but it'll still carry more passengers. That does two things. That fiddles your business case, but it also fiddles your carbon output as well, because they are looking not at the actual carbon output, but carbon per passenger kilometre. So the more passengers you have, the greater distance that they're travelling, the lower your carbon impact. So they're saying that it would be 3 times less carbon emitted by HS2 than there would be from slower electric trains, which obviously use less energy. And there's so many of these cons going on with HS2, but they say, yeah, it'd be great for carbon. Well, not according to your own analysis. And that's the problem.
Now, but I was hoping you could sort of break down in a minute exactly what the implications of HS2 are.
HS2 will be the most environmentally damaging railway in the history of the planet. It's also going to be the most expensive railway in the history of the planet. It will still be contributing carbon into the atmosphere in 120 years' time. Well, beyond that, it's just that their forecast only goes up to 120 years, and they haven't bothered looking beyond that. And if it goes ahead, it'll mean that basically this is the only project we'll be able to afford for years. The smaller, more environmentally friendly, sustainable commuting projects for that just do the short distances, which is the vast majority of passengers are short distance commuters. Those things that deliver more benefits to more people more quickly and cost less money, they won't get a look in, because all the money's going to go on HS2 as it keeps going over budget and lining the pockets of the people who've lobbied for it. And that's the thing, whatever argument you see put forward for HS2, it starts from a position that it's been invented by people who want to make money out of building it.
And what is the implications for wildlife?
It's the most environmentally damaging railway in the history of the planet. You're looking at almost 700 wildlife sites affected, according to the Wildlife Trust, 33 SSIs, which obviously are protected by law, 5 internationally protected wildlife sites. The Woodland Trust say 108 ancient woodlands. You're also looking at diverting 9 major rivers. You've got 34 kilometres through flood zones, and it will take, two-thirds of the electricity that the entire rail network currently wants, because it's so carbon and energy intensive. It's just a disaster waiting to happen, and hopefully we can stop it happening with actions like this.
Absolutely, and I want to talk now, moving from the wildlife side to the human-centred focus. You've been involved with this for 10 years now.
Yep.
In that time, I'm sure you must have met some people who are having their lives destroyed by HS2, be that whether their homes are having to be moved or those sorts of situations. Could you talk about that?
It's absolutely heartbreaking, some of the stories from people who have been impacted by HS2 over the last 10 years. Because HS2 is so far over budget and they have underestimated the cost of buying the land and the property by so much that they're basically trying to turf people off their farms without paying for them. you know, because they have the power to do this. And the 1973 Land Compensation Act, yeah, they can break that because there's no penalty for breaking the 1973 Land Compensation Act. If you're in a home, they'll pay you. But what they will do is that they will beat you down, and they will beat you down psychologically. They will bully you into accepting a fraction of what your house is worth, and that's the way that they treat people. I say anyone who has any criticism of HS2 is the enemy as far as they're concerned. They've got this tin hat bunker mentality because they've got this absolute arrogance and certainty that everything that they do is right and everything that anyone else does is wrong, and if you are in their way, you are the enemy.
And with all of that in mind, what do you see as the projection for the future? What do you have hope for the future? What does the future look like for you for HS2?
Right at this point in time, HS2 is more likely of being cancelled than it ever has been. You know, we've had 10 years of governments who've saying absolutely they're all for it, and right at this moment, Boris Johnson he didn't need to have a review, and he's had a review. And obviously that's because a lot of the senior advisors have massive problems with this. Not because of the impact on nature, but because of the costs. And because if you spend all your money on HS2, you're not going to have that money to spend on things that we actually need in this country. So we've got to be optimistic, and we've got to keep the pressure on right now, and keep showing the government that, you know, if they are stupid enough to go ahead with this project, then they can expect 10 years of direct actions like this over 140 miles of phase 1. And then they can expect another 10 years of direct actions like this over the 200 miles of phase 2, because people are not being conned by this. Like, there is a climate emergency and HS2 does nothing except contribute to it. Why? Because people are making money out of it, because it's all about money, money and land. That's what this has always been about. It is not a transport solution, it is just something that is going to line people's pockets, and it has to be stopped. It has to be stopped now.
And perfect time to answer this question then. With that in mind, we've got Extinction Rebellion here. You're not part of Extinction Rebellion. Mm-hmm. We've got people from all different walks of life. Could you talk a bit about the importance of working together for a sustainable future, and also what people can do watching this who perhaps have never been to the site before?
It is absolutely essential that we all come together if we want a sustainable future. Not a sustainable future, just a future. Right? We can't go on the way that we've been going on. Well, making policies like this because people, you know, just because people want to make money is not going to buy us a future on this planet. We have to work together to combat the climate crisis that we're facing. And if anyone wants to get involved, we are, there's so much information out there. There are 5 different camps now. We're looking at trying to set up more. There's camps in Kenilworth, Cubbington, Wendover, Great Missenden, and here in Herfield. Although we're sure that they'll come back and try and evict here in the week. We're in Parliament on Wednesday the 22nd of January. People can join us there from 11 o'clock. We need to keep the pressure on. Because there is a distinct chance, there is a real chance, and I've never really thought this over the last 10 years until the last couple of months, but there is a real chance that this project can be cancelled right now. So, you know, whatever social media channels, have a look through at whatever Extinction Rebellion are putting out, have a look through, you know, Stop HS2, find out what you can do, and please do it.